Welcome to Scrum and Wine for November 9th, 2022. So glad to have everybody here. Hopefully I shared the right screen and you see Scrum and Wine and you don't see a whole bunch of really small windows because that's what you would be seeing if I shared the wrong monitor. So I'm sure everybody is good with that. Yeah, happy to everybody here. A lot of familiar faces, a couple new ones. So welcome everybody. Many people have told me that this is the only active Agile community in the Los Angeles area. So I'm proud of that. We've been doing this for about 6 years now, and have only skipped maybe 1 or 2 months, usually the January month, just to take a break. But other than that, we have not skipped it, virtual or not, or pandemic or not. We've done, it's been fun, and we've tried so many new experiments, built some great relationships. So welcome everybody, and glad to have you part of our community. Let me tell you what's happening in the world of Agile and Scrum. So we like to kick off with what I call small bites, and a little bit of what's going on. So what's upcoming? I love to let you guys know about the Certified Scrum Developer class. I'm pretty passionate about it. I teach it. I helped rewrite the entire Scrum Developer track with some amazing people from around the globe. We relaunched that in April of 2021. And a lot of great classes. I think every coach should go through this. I believe if you're a coach, you should have the Scrum Master, the Product Owner, and the Developer Foundation classes and be a professional in at least one of them. So I think that should be a prerequisite. The Scrum Developer has not gotten the attention as it should be, even though it's 10 times the community of Scrum Masters and Product Owners. So I've got an upcoming class in December, so feel free to join that. It is for everybody. The first class is for everybody. You don't have to be a programmer. So whether you're a QA, whether you're a coach, whether you're a trainer, whether you're a leader in an organization, whatever you do, we set up this class. You learn a lot of really cool practices. So coming up in December, if you need a 10% discount, type Scrum and Wine on checkout. So as part of this community, I make a 10% discount available to everybody. So you can type Scrum and Wine at checkout if you want to. Early bird price is available up until 2 weeks before the class starts. So I've got one in December. There's another one in January. And the Advanced Certified Scrum Developer. So if you're a CSD and you are a programmer, come to the ACSD. The ACSD is, we do actual programming in there using some real coding standards. So that one is targeted for programmers, just so you know.
Same time, but instead of certified, instead of Pacific Daylight, it's
standard time. Did we write what do we put on there? Yeah, it says PDT. It should be PST. Thanks, okay. David. Yep. 6 to 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I wish we'd get rid of that daylight savings time thing and just be on one time zone, permanent, which we're trying to do, but hasn't happened yet. All right, next up, Agile Lean International Conference 2022, coming up here on the 16th and 17th of November. ALI, as it's known, traces its roots to the Dublin Agile community from the early to mid 2010s. It has grown to become the largest Agile Lean meetup in Ireland with several thousand members. Their meetups have been a mix of presentations by local practitioners and international experts, workshops, Lean Coffee, and lightning talks. They're one of the first, possibly the first, to use video conferencing to bring international experts to their local audience. In 2017, they established this conference, and it has grown year over year and has been recognized as one of the best Agile conferences in the world by Tech Beacon. All right, check that out, ALI, November. All right, Conference on Agility. This one's December 1st and 2nd for teams and companies. This is in Germany and online. It's a conference that focuses on the exchange about agility in teams and companies at all levels. This ranges from the sense and nonsense of using tools and their optimal use in Agile software teams to scaling Agile models and processes across entire organizations. What is particularly important to us, an open exchange at eye level, pragmatic solutions, interactive elements, a personal atmosphere, and high quality lectures or contributions on the cutting edge, and for some even beyond. All right, so check that out. All right, next Global Scrum Gathering that's coming up. This is going to be in Portland. So for all of us West Coasters, this should be easy for us to get to. So please try to make it in person. Love to see everybody there. So this one is in May 7th through 10th in Portland. It's also virtual and beyond, so it's Portland and beyond. And this is for our North American Gathering 2023. located on the shores of the Willamette River. Global Scrum gatherings hold a special place in the heart of the Scrum Alliance community. 3 days that are dedicated to connecting with fellow changemakers, deepening our knowledge and understanding of Scrum and Agile, and celebrating the impact we've had on transforming the world of work. After finally getting to reconnect in 2022 from our Denver one and our Lisbon, we now can't wait for 2023 to continue to bring everybody together in this hybrid, local and beyond network. So one of my favorite activities personally to go to, last year I was a program advisory team member. This year I'm going to be submitting papers. And if anybody wants to know or is interested in submitting papers to this or anything, that can be a great breakout topic after our guest speaker of Sean tonight. I can tell you how that works a little bit. I'm very familiar with it. All right, moving forward, Agile USA also coming up in May, later in May, in Chicago, my hometown. And I only like to be in Chicago from about May till September. So this would be okay. The rest of Chicago, nah, a little too cold. So love Chicago though. All right, from Berlin to Chicago, North America's greatest Agile testing festival. So looking forward to having this. This is for Agile test developers. They haven't released the program guide yet, but more details will come up shortly. So if you're interested in that, watch for that coming up in Agile, especially if you have anything to do with Agile and how to advance the world of testing. All right, if you haven't checked this out yet, get this. Whether you're a coach or not, this is a free report that is published by Business Agility Institute, IC Agile, and Scrum Alliance. This is the second annual State of Agile Coaching Report. You can download that from the Scrum Alliance website or just go search Agile Coaching Report and you'll go find that. It focuses on one key question: how do Agile coaches and the organizations they serve measure impact? The report gathered data from over 2,000 professional Agile coaches. Maybe some of you answered those survey questions when they came out. Shared their input on impact of Agile coaching, return on investment, value, and the measurements to define success. The State of Agile Coaching Report I mentioned too is published by. It's meant to capture a point-in-time synopsis of the Agile coaching industry. So check that out. If you haven't been part of the Kudomi enterprise yet, get yourself on there. So being part of Kudomi will help let you have a guide, give you a toolbox to help you within your organizations. In order to accomplish a transformation to any Agile culture, we developed Kudomi as a scaled Agile transformation framework to guide your organizations from your current state towards agility. It's done by establishing enterprise-wide Agile teams, forming Agile leaders, and measuring the progress along the Agile journey. Kudomi ecosystem understands that each organization transformation journey is unique. The Kudomi ecosystem is an adaptable and customizable framework consisting of teams, accelerators, and products that act as your Agile guide. So check it out. There's a lot of free accelerators, and we can help you out, kudomi.co, to learn more about Kudomi. Along with kudomi.co, one of the tools we have is the Kudomi Tools platform. On the Kudomi Tools platform, there is a sprint capacity planner, and there is also the agility metrics engine. I'm super excited about both of those. There's a premium version and an enterprise version. We still need to correct the premium. It's got 2 I's in it. We keep forgetting to correct that, Hutch and Griffin. So premium. So yeah, it's very I. So we say there's no I in team, but there's 2 I's in premium. So go figure that out. I'll get that going here. So check that out. There's a lot of great stuff on here. I want to get you guys on the platform, want your feedback. It can really change what's going on in your organization and answer those tough questions. 2 key questions that are asked all the time, which is why we built it. How much can we get done on our future sprints or activity? And how do we know we're actually doing the right things? How do we measure our success? So both of those questions are answered on this platform. It's a little bit of what it looks like here. So this is kind of our landing page, shows some of the dashboards that you can see within the Sprint Capacity Planner and the Agility Metrics engine. There's a full enterprise version now that many of you might not have seen. So you can bring it for your whole organization. You can get full teams. You can set up all of your teams on the platform, full enterprise with dashboards, visibility. Are my teams all working the same? What teams are accelerating? Which teams might be struggling? And now we can get coached and have great conversations so we can work amazing. So get on there, kadomitools.com. Love to see you on there, and I desire and thrive on your feedback. So please give us feedback. All right, let me introduce Sean Barrett here. So Sean has helped people figure out how to be happy. Thank you, Sean, for doing that. Retired after 35 years of IT program management, he is a certified teacher of emotional intelligence and a certified practitioner of trauma-sensitive mindfulness. The joy of teamwork is building mindfulness, self-awareness, and empathy so we can work together and thrive in the brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible conditions of the workplace. So please welcome Sean Barrett. Sean, let's turn it over to you. Thanks.
You're moving my screen around. Okay, can I get permission for my slides login to share, please?
Yeah, try now. Can you share now? Otherwise, I'll just make you a co-host. Did that work?
It seems to be working. Let me fiddle around here for a bit.
Okay. Otherwise, I'll just make you a co-host to make it easy.
Okay, I am sharing screen. Okay, great.
Yep.
Yay! Love it when technology works. Okay, hey, thank you very much for the intro, Sherman. Sorry for the little speed bump there as we fiddle with our tech. Yes, I was a project management professional, an Agile certified practitioner, a certified Scrum master, though I let that certification lapse. I've done this kind of stuff before. And I do notice that one of the things that always comes up when we talk about moving people from a classical waterfall environment into Scrum or Agile or any of the lean technologies is the fact that the organization needs to be able to function effectively, regardless of the methodology. If there's a lot of distrust, if there's a lot of tension in the organization, Agile's not going to work. So we start talking about high-performing teams in hopes of convincing the executives to change their wicked ways. When I was doing it, that was a difficult process. So what I have developed over the years, I retired in 2018, and over the past 4.5 years, I've been helping people figure out how to get along with each other, how to be happy. And I thought I might offer something specifically for how to build a high-performing Agile team in the soft sense of everybody getting along and helping each other out. So I always begin what I'm doing with a moment to arrive, because we've always come here from somewhere else, and we always have something on our minds as we sit down here. Like right now, we're probably really excited about getting to some of these great meetups that Sherman has put together, or some of this great training. So what I will ask you to do is just for 30 seconds, sit here, sit quietly, let go of everything that has happened before, and start wondering about what it is I'm going to be babbling about for the next half an hour or so. So this isn't necessarily a meditation. If you're comfortable with meditation, this is a great opportunity for it. But all I'm asking for you to do is take everything that you've been thinking about, put it in a box, know that it'll be there when we come back to it in a few minutes, and be here now, as someone once said. So if you choose to, let your attention come to rest on your favorite focus, which might be the breath, or it might be a sound in the room. And just relax. And then on another breath, let go of what you were thinking about before we started switching the screens around. And on the final breath, let's just ask ourselves, what is important right now? And then maybe one final breath just to relax again, and we'll get started. Hi there. Already given you pretty much an introduction of who I am. If you want to get in touch with me, there's some contact information there on the screen. Love to make contacts on LinkedIn. I am a resilience and emotional intelligence coach and mentor. If you or your team would like some help, give me a call. We'll see what we can do. Okay, so why are we here? I do a lot of work with academia, and they like these learning outcomes actually spelled out for them. So I'm going to talk about mindfulness, self-awareness, and empathy. And when I'm done, I hope you have some idea of what I mean by those words. I also hope that you will have some idea of how to apply these things specifically towards team building in the work environment. So, how many of you feel like this during the working day? There we go. Gallery, I want to see you people. Thank you. Why do we feel like this? I mean, presumably we chose our jobs because it was something that sounded interesting at the time. Why is it that we get worn down in this way? Well, the reason is fairly well understood. A bunch of years ago, like maybe 40 years ago, the US Army War College looked into what kind of situation their officers were going to find themselves in on the battlefield, getting shot at, all that stuff. And they came up with an acronym to describe, or actually it's an initialism, to describe the battlefield as someplace that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. VUCA spells VUCA. And that is a useful way to describe the situation. But in those terms, or that term, however you want to look at it, there's no answer. There's no indication of what you should do about it. Okay, yes, it is that way, and that's definitely going to put you in under stress. But what does that do to you, and then how do you handle it? Well, so as thought of in this area has evolved, they've come up with a new four-letter initialism, BANI, because it makes your life, your situation, your problem-solving ability brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. And the idea is that especially in an agile space where things by definition happen very quickly and can change on the proverbial dime, your plans are going to be brittle. They could easily shatter and need to be completely rebuilt in a moment. This can make you anxious if you aren't good at watching your feelings and taking care of yourself. A small change can have huge results. That's the nonlinear part of it. And I've shown you down here in the lower left corner a picture of one of the wildfires we get here in California that was caused by somebody setting off a firework. Small change, big result. And in the end, this can result in a completely incomprehensible situation. So let's not despair about this, but let's just understand that's what we're up against and try to figure out what we're going to do about it, okay? So one of the contributors to the problem, and I hope this isn't you, is leaders who multitask. Now, pretty much by definition, the leader is going to have more than one thing to do. But we can hope that the leader focuses on one thing at a time and gets it to a stable point before switching to the next one. The kind of leader that's answering emails while in a product demonstration is not going to be the most effective possible leader. Multitasking causes people to lose nearly 2.5 hours per day out of an, let's even be a hard worker, a 10-hour day. That's a lot of time. Some leaders get up to 200 email messages, according to surveys. Switching between tasks 300 times in one day is about 280 times too much. They spend a lot of time on their phones. I think we've probably all seen people who do that. A lot of that is non-work activity, meaning it's non-productive. It isn't actually contributing to the success of the enterprise. And every single one of them knows that they are above average. So this is one of the things to notice. And if necessary, if applicable, go ahead and apply it to yourself. The human brain is not a multitasking computer. Some people have developed ways of camouflaging the fact that they're switching tasks very fast, but you're only doing one task at a time. And every time you switch, you have to load the whole new framework, and that costs time and energy. So multitasking is one of the holes, one of the traps you can fall into when you find yourself under the pressure of the Bani world. Does this make sense? So what do we do when we've got too much to do? Well, the human brain has a thing called the default mode network, which is a lot of words, and I always get the initialism wrong, DMN. You can think of it as cruise control. When you're driving your car, when the traffic permits, you push the button and the car maintains a constant speed without you having to constantly fiddle with the gas pedal. And that's fine as long as traffic isn't cutting in and out, which is why there's all these safety measures of where you turn the wheel too far, cruise control cuts off. When you step on the brake, cruise control cuts off. Same kind of thing happens in the human mind. Cruise control is active when you, the conscious mind, are thinking about something else. What is something else? Something else is when you're daydreaming or mind wandering. What's Portland going to be like in May? It is also active when you're focused on detailed task performance. So when you're writing your status report, you are actually on cruise control for all other aspects of your life except the single task that you're working on. Your default mode network is active when you're thinking about others, or when you are thinking consciously about yourself, when you're remembering the past, or when you're planning for the future. Well, so now by the time I get to the bottom of this list, you're thinking, well, what isn't on this list? Cruise control is not active when you are aware of your present surroundings without making plans to do something about them, when you are simply in the present moment. Now, this is not a natural state for the human brain to be in. Our default mode network consumes more power, consumes more glucose out of the bloodstream than any other mode that our brain can be in. Default mode is what keeps you alive when you're wandering down the street thinking about something else. Default mode is what keeps you from having an accident when you're driving to work and you're listening to your audiobook and paying attention to that. So I am not in any sense saying that cruise control is a bad thing, but I am saying that when you're on cruise control, you're not thinking about the present here and now. And it is useful to be able to turn it on and off. And that's what I'm going to talk about here for the next few minutes. Everyone still with me? Okay. How do we do this? How do we take control of our own mind when our own mind is so very good about being in control itself? Well, many people thinking about how to break habits or how to become a better boss or a better developer or a better team member have noticed, and I've got two examples here, these people are saying exactly the same thing. Between a stimulus, between something happening and you responding and doing something about it, there is a gap. Now, if you're not paying attention, that gap may be like down in a tenth of a second or so, and you might not notice it. But once you get in the habit of paying attention, you'll find that you can stop for pretty much an arbitrary amount of time and not respond to the stimulus until you think about it a little bit. And that's what we're going to try to explore here. We're going to mind the gap here between stimulus and response. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to tap the brakes. We're going to get off of cruise control. There's a couple of ways to do that. The method of doing this we'll call mindfulness, because we're taking control of our own minds instead of just letting them run wherever they choose to go. Well, the first way to do this, you may have some experience with, is classic meditation, where you focus your mind, you pay close attention to a single stimulus. The Buddhists call this single-pointed mindfulness. You pick one thing, and often it is suggested that you focus on your breath. Especially after the recent pandemic, there are people whose breath is not a comfortable thing to focus on, and so I suggest you think of something else. It may be the buzz of the computer next to you. It may be the bright light that's shining in your face from the camera. It may be the pressure of the seat against your legs. But it's something constant, something that's not going to just switch off in the middle of your meditation. And you pay close attention to it. Now, the breath is nice because it has phases. There's the inhale, there's the hold, there's the out, exhale, the breath out, and there's the emptiness of the lungs before the next breath comes in. And so there's enough variety there that you can think about it. So I suggest that if the breath is available to you. If not, you can find something else. And let's just take 2 minutes and practice this. So if you'll get comfortable in your seat and take a deep breath and just pay attention to what that feels like. Feel your ribs moving. Feel the sensation of the air moving through your nose and mouth. And just notice that. You don't need any special incense here, and you don't need to sit in an uncomfortable position. You do want to avoid falling asleep. And then let the breath out, feeling all the sensations of the breath leaving your body. And congratulations, you're meditating. Let's do that for a little while. And then you can relax your focus. Meditation is good practice for paying attention to something here in the present that you don't have to reason about. You can just take in the sensory sensations of the present moment. That's not something that we do very often unless we make a conscious practice of it. This is one form of training the mind to be able to exploit that gap between stimulus and response. Now, I skipped over all of the sit up straight and hold your hands in your lap instructions that you usually get with meditation, because we're not here to become meditators. We're here to become good team members and team leaders. So how do we do this? How do we accomplish this when we're at work in a cube farm or maybe an open plan office and you don't have any time? Well, you can do it in 30 seconds. You can do it in less than that, but I recommend 30 seconds, which is enough time to take 3 long, slow breaths. And with the first breath, you just bring your attention into the sensations of your body. You try to stop thinking about everything going on around you for just a few seconds and focus on your own feelings. On the second breath, you consciously relax. Drop your shoulders down, release your muscular tension, and then on the third breath, you can ask, what's important now? And if you try this a few times, your body will learn that this is a moment when it can lower its defenses, when it can relax for a bit. And you'll find that this allows you then, once you've taken that third breath, to focus on what's going on around you, now in the sense of doing business and accomplishing your projects. Mindfulness is becoming really popular. The word gets used a lot, and that's not just my impression or your impression as people show up talking about it. This is a meta study, a study of studies, for the number of times the word mindfulness appeared in formal peer-reviewed literature. And you've got a classic hockey stick here. It was practically unknown before, what is that, about 2004? And it has exploded in popularity ever since, in articles and in reviews of articles. So people are starting to notice it, and people are starting to wonder what we mean by it, and people are starting to do experiments, and their experiments are yielding some very interesting results. So to start off with, I need to underline what I've already been saying about the default mode network versus the task positive network. Only one of these can be on at a time if you are a neurotypical person. The task positive network is what comes on when you're working on something, and ideally you're working on something that is going so well, it's just the right amount of challenging that you get into a flow state and you lose track of time. Task positive network doesn't have a very good clock. So you may look up and wonder why it got dark outside. Default mode network is on all the other times. And it is not focused on a task. It is focused on being aware of the environment and taking care of you as you walk across the street while reading your email on your phone. Now, I mentioned neurotypicals toggle between these, and that's great. Those of us who have ADHD, the default mode network doesn't shut off, which is why we can be in the middle of a task and, ooh, squirrel. And it's a rare and joyous moment when we can actually get into, typically it's a video game or something like that, where we could just get into flow and forget the rest of the world. Meditation activates the task positive network because you're giving it a task. Pay attention to the breath, watch the candle flame, enjoy the bird song, whatever it happens to be. It's a task. And it quiets the default mode network. Now, if you're like me, the default mode network has been running for a lot of years without anything getting in its way. And so there's a lot of inertia there. And it takes a lot of work to back it down and get it to let go and let you focus on something. So none of this is just a matter of, oh, well, I'm just going to do that today. You've got to think about it. And one of the things that I think has caused mindfulness and similar words to spike in attention in the literature is the greater and greater availability of functional MRI machines. We can stick your head in the tube and actually watch your brain activity as you let yourself get distracted, as you focus on a task, as you meditate. And so when I say different areas of the brain light up, I'm literally talking about we can watch the brain doing its thing on a screen. Here's one example of the kind of experiments that get done. Painful stimuli. And I want to put a footnote in here before I even get started. A lot of these experiments talk about inflicting pain on the experimental subjects. That's not necessarily because the scientists are all sadists, though I'm sure some of them are. It's because pain is really easy to inflict in a controlled way. It's a lot harder to make someone happy in a controlled way. So they tend to jab people with needles. What they did here was they put what they call a thermode. It's a electrode that gets hot. Strap it to your arm with a Velcro band. And they say, when I push this button, you're going to feel a stab of heat, painfully hot, on your arm. And they show you. They're telling the truth for a change. Well, as they monitor your brain activity, as you see their hand getting closer and closer to the button, you're going to tense up, right? You know that it hurts. They've demonstrated that to you. And then they push the button, and sure enough, it hurts. And then they let go. And for a while afterwards, you're thinking, man, that hurt. I did not like that. This is because you and I and everyone else habitually anticipate the future, then we endure the present, and then we think about the past and grumble about it. Right? That's exactly what's happening here in the laboratory. they show you they're about to push the button and you go, oh no, I don't want that. Well, as you get better at turning off the default mode network and thinking about the actual here and now present, you will have less anticipatory stress and you'll have less prolonged anxiety afterwards. The pain will still be pain because that is in the present moment, but you will have less anticipation, which doesn't do any good, and less lingering after effects, which don't do any good, other than maybe to rub in the lesson of don't let that guy push that button anymore. So this kind of stuff can actually be measured, can actually be peer reviewed and published in the journals. And mindfulness can be measured as a skill that will save you worry. Now, maybe nobody's going to burn your arm at work or jab you with a needle, but how often have you dreaded a meeting or an event coming up? And how long have you afterwards thought, man, that sucked. I did not like that. You can make yourself happier by controlling your ability to deal with those situations. Now, you can practice the same way, you can practice mindfulness, you can practice training your brain the same way you can practice training your body. There are spontaneous kinds of practice and there's planned kinds of practice. You can say, I'm going to meditate every morning, if you can squeeze the time in there somehow. And so I've got a couple pairs of words here, depending on how you want to think about it. You can constantly be trying to remember to be mindful at a spontaneous, chronic, low intensity, steady state kind of workout, and that's a good way to do it. You can also have scheduled time where you do an intense meditation. That's another good way of doing it. I recommend a mixture. Now, what do I mean by focused attention? This is actually a real flow chart done up by an engineer I know who teaches meditation to engineers. If you like this kind of stuff, have a blast. I don't. Here's my focused attention process. And you probably noticed this when you were doing the breathing earlier. We're going to start off trying to focus on our object of attention, the breath or the sound or whatever your anchor point is. Okay? And most people can go, okay, I'm breathing in. And then what happens? Then you get distracted. Maybe you just hear another weird sound and you look away. Maybe you think, oh, my arm itches. You notice that you're distracted. That's actually the hardest part of all. Figuring out that you got distracted before you've lost too much time. Then, hello. After you notice it, you bring your mind back to the focus. This is also a tricky part. Don't get mad at yourself. Don't all sorts of analogies for this process. Picking up the puppy and putting it back in the box is one of them. But by all means, you need to be gentle with yourself and you need to understand that distractions are very common. I mean, they're more than common. They are ubiquitous. Everybody gets them. What you want to do is extend the amount of time between distractions. Try to get through like just one complete cycle of breath without losing focus. And then 1.5. All right. And as I say, you can come at this either from a high intensity point of view or a low intensity point of view. It depends on your immediate surroundings, situation, and what is working for your emotional state at the time. You have to be aware of your surroundings, and that includes your emotional surroundings as well. So if you are agitated, anxious, upset, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, take it easy on yourself. You need to have self-compassion. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but it comes up now. Anybody got any questions on this? Okay. The breath is used as an anchor very common. Like it's the go-to for everybody that I've ever talked to. Sometimes the breath is not the most favorable thing to focus on. Some people have trouble with it. Here are some suggestions for other sensations that you might want to pay attention to. What you want is something that is going to be steady state. You don't want it to just to quit on you in the middle of your meditation. That's really the only thing. Okay. Another kind of meditation. We've talked about focused. Another kind of meditation is open awareness. And this is a very useful one when you are in a work environment, because most of the time, at least in my experience, you aren't going to be able to just go heads down in your cube for a long period of time. People are going to be coming up, the phone's going to be ringing, you're going to have to answer your emails, all that kind of stuff. So open awareness is the process of not focusing on a single object, but rather paying attention to everything that is going on around you. So after a first breath or so to get your body relaxed and stable and settled in your place, you open up your awareness and you notice everything that's going on. You hear the bird songs or the computer fan humming. You recognize the lights. You notice the feelings in your body. And you don't focus on them. Rather, you label them. You say, oh, that's the computer fan. And then you let it go on by. I've heard the analogy that you're standing at a train station and the train goes by. You go, wow, there's a train going by, but you don't try to grab hold of it. You don't try to stop the train. So I'd like to try that one for a couple of minutes. So if you could settle yourself in your seat and get yourself upright, but not uptight enough that you're not going to fall asleep. This one, it's very easy to get distracted. When you do, you just label it, I got distracted, and let it go and open up your awareness to whatever the next sensation will be. So take one deep breath to settle in, and then just start noticing everything going on around you. And when something comes by, you can hang a name tag on it. And let it keep going. You're not trying to hold anything. You're just resting and waiting for the next sensation. Distractions are some of those things. Notice it, name it, let it be. Your thoughts and your feelings. Notice them, name them, and let them be. Nothing else to do. Just notice what's happening. And when you're ready, you can take another deep breath. Return your attention to the Zoom call. This is a very, very short meditation, but it indicates a different type of getting off of the default mode network. You are task oriented. You're listening for things to happen. You're feeling for things to happen, perhaps in your body. You're not distracted, but you're not focused on a single thing. So I'm going to pause here for a second and ask if anybody's got any questions or comments at all right now before we get into building a team with all these tools. Nope. Going once, going twice. Okay then. So the TLDR here. Brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible can be counteracted with the antidotes of resilience, empathy, adaptivity, and intuition. What we've been talking about is tapping the brakes to get off of cruise control, stop making assumptions, stop just wandering around without paying attention. You can do that in 30 seconds or less with just 3 breaths. And you can focus your attention on an anchor of your choice, such as possibly the breath. Okay, so that's the summary of the first part. Now, what do we do with this? How do we express what we've learned? You express it with compassion. We've talked about things that are all about being aware of ourselves, the way our mind works, what's going on around us. Now let's look outward and talk about other people. So I'm going to define empathy. This is another one of those words that gets tossed around a lot. Everybody gets to make up their own meaning. This is what I mean by it. Empathy is a measurable function of our nervous system. We can see it in the fMRI machine. It gives us the ability to experience and understand what other people are doing, what they're feeling. While, and this is a very important point, maintaining a key discernment, knowing the difference between what they're feeling and what we're feeling. If the other person's feelings are contagious, if you start feeling what they're feeling, you're doing it wrong. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You need to be able to say, he's angry, but I'm cool. He's in a lot of pain. I'm sorry that he's in a lot of pain, but I'm not in pain. I'm still functional and able to help. You might recall on airplanes, they always say, put your own oxygen mask on first. If somebody else is hurt and becoming aware that they're hurt hurts you, now we got 2 hurt people. Okay? So what we want to do is make a clear distinction between knowing and caring that the other person is feeling the way they are, but not letting it mess us up. Okay? Empathy is also not, and this is really important, it's not a virtue, it's not a superpower. Somebody who says, oh, I'm highly empathetic and this is really upsetting me is really bad at being empathetic. Sorry, but this is important enough that I'm not going to sugarcoat things. Everybody, all humans, all primates, most mammals have empathy. We can put them in fMRI machines. We can show them pictures of other critters of their sort suffering, and their brains light up like they were suffering. We have mirror neurons. I see the comment. We have mirror neurons that cause our brains to react in reaction to what we perceive. And even if you're thinking, oh, well, you know, I'm a cold-blooded entrepreneurial businessman, I don't have feelings. If you smile when you see a happy baby, you have empathy. You have no idea why that baby's happy. That baby might be happy because it just relieved a bodily pressure and is now feeling much better. And they're grinning, and you automatically grin in response because you have those mirror neurons in your brain. So everybody got it. Sorry to go on for so long. It irritates me. Empathy is not psychologizing or making psychiatric diagnoses. You cannot look at somebody on the other side of the country and say, oh, he is a pathological narcissist. Even psychiatrists won't do that. Okay, now if you're just shooting the breeze with your friends and criticizing somebody you don't like, okay, yeah, I understand that we talk that way. But do understand that you have no ability to know what's going on in someone else's life unless they tell you. And even then, you don't have the full picture. You don't know what's going on inside their heads. You have an idea of what their emotional state is. Unless they talk to you, you have no idea what their cognitive state is. Okay? Kind of important. It is not agreement. Empathy is not agreement. It is possible to understand another person's feelings and still disagree. And a word picture, it's not really an analogy, that I like to use is if you're playing a game with somebody, a competitive game, chess, checkers, whatever, backgammon. You can, if you're good at the game, you can look at the board and go, okay, if I were you, I would probably be trying to do something this way in the game. And you can understand that. And if they are a player that lets their emotions get involved, this is even better. You can look at them and go, aha, you're getting irritated and they're gonna, do something rash. And you can understand them and still have every intention of winning the game. Okay, now you can extrapolate that out into the business space without me saying something that might be a little overly harsh. But you can understand somebody and still think that they are totally wrong, and you can advise them against doing what they're planning to do, or you can try to stop them from doing what they're planning to do. Any questions about this? Okay. A particular kind of empathy. Now we're getting directly into how to build a high-performing team at work. I'm not going to read the slide. I hate people who read slides. But Google's a data-driven company. Google loves to collect data about stuff. And so Google, it was very natural for Google to start doing surveys and questionnaires and whatnot. And they found that of all the things that they could think about that might make one team perform better than another team, now the number of PhDs, the ethnic diversity of the team, the whatever, they found that the number one factor that makes a team perform well is the existence of psychological safety within the team. Okay, what is psychological safety, I ask rhetorically. Psychological safety is the belief that the boss and the rest of the team is going to back you up, is going to accept you, that you are a part of the team. When you believe that, you gain the confidence to perform at a higher level. It may not be fully obvious how that chain of causation works. So let's go into it in detail, and let's talk very, very specifically about how each member of the team can contribute to this, because psychological safety is not an edict from the boss. Okay? The director of program development, the product owner, the scrum master, the lead developer, which aren't supposed to have one of, I know. None of these people can come in and say, oh, by the way, we're going to be a team with psychological safety. It doesn't work that way. So let's work our way carefully through the degrees of psychological safety, and let's pay attention to how each one of us can benefit from it. That's the good part. But also how we can do it and how we can provide psychological safety to other people. Because this is an exercise in empathy, and you can't do empathy by yourself. So, number one, if the team has psychological safety, if it has even the barest minimum of psychological safety, you can be included in the team. Well, you think, I was assigned to the team, I'm in the team. Yeah, but you can show up and you can be given the cold shoulder. Nobody will talk to you. Nobody will put you on the mailing list. You have to argue to get included into the, the Trello board and so forth. It is safe for you to be unique. If I walked up to a team and they said, we don't allow anybody with long hair, I would not be included in that team, even if I was assigned to sit there in that room. If the team made it known that people cannot have both beards and earrings, I'd be in trouble. You're granted human rights in the absence of harm. Now, harm can actually consist of being hit, But harm can also consist of being told that you can't be yourself. If someone shows up at the team and the team says, oh, we have a dress code and you can't have natural hair, or something like that, this actually does harm. You might have heard the term microaggression. So the team has to accept you as a basic human being. If you haven't got that, nothing else follows. And so let's pause for a moment and think, okay, we're all nice people here. We're not gonna call anybody names or tell ethnic jokes in the middle of the Scrum meeting. But are we actually welcoming everybody into the team? Are we calling out people when they get near the border? Or is this one of those environments where the other people tell jokes and you don't like it, but you don't want to make waves, you don't want to disrupt things, and so you don't say anything? Well, that would diminish this first bullet point, and it would cause a situation where some people aren't included in the team and the team doesn't have psychological safety. Are there any questions about this point? I'm going to ask that after each one of these. Anybody want to bring something up? Okay. Number 2, you can learn. Again, that may seem like, yeah, but have you ever been thrown into a situation where you were expected to be perfect right off the bat, where you were expected to know everything before you were told? That kind of situation does not create psychological safety, because if every time you ask a question, somebody says, that's a dumb question, how can you be here and not know that? Right? That's not a place with psychological safety. So you have to be able to come in, you have to be able to sit down and not know everything. You have to be allowed to grow. You have to be allowed to make mistakes. Now, hopefully these aren't mistakes that are going to derail the entire project, but you have to be able to, come late to a meeting. You have to be able to send email to the wrong distribution list or something without it costing your entire existence on the team. The deal at this second level is the team will encourage you to learn in exchange for your willingness to learn. Now, there is a give and take here. If someone shows up and says, I don't know nothing and I'm not going to learn, well, they're not contributing to the team. They're not adding to psychological safety, and you do have a problem in that case. But if they're willing to learn, the team needs to be willing to let them in, let them make mistakes, correct their mistakes, and have them grow into the position. And I think we can see how every member of the team, not just the bosses, whatever their titles might happen to be, but the other developers, the other workers on the team, need to be able to come together and help out everybody, help out each other. Does this make sense? Yeah. Someone's nodding. Okay. As we get even better into psychological safety, you, the member of the team, can contribute to the team. Again, it should be really obvious. How can you possibly be on a team and not be allowed to contribute to the team? Well, do they let you help? Or do they say, oh, you're new, you aren't good enough at this, you'll just slow us down. We'll take it. It's safe to use your skills and abilities. If you have a background in, I don't know, let's say cybersecurity, and you see the way the development is going, and there isn't necessarily a story about security, but you just say, hey, based on what happened in my last job, we might be setting ourselves up for a problem here. Are you allowed to contribute using your unique skills and abilities, or do you have to simply sit down, shut up, and do your job? And the deal at this level is you are given autonomy and accountability in exchange for producing results. Okay? The team wants your results. In order to get your results, the team is willing to let you work. Now, this really cuts to the heart of Agile, right? Because everybody is supposed to be working on their own stuff at their own rate, based on the stories, of course, and producing results, minimum deliverable product. And the team has a lot of autonomy to determine how they do that. Well, that requires a lot of trust. So we're 3/4 of the way through my degrees of psychological safety here. You can't have an agile team without a high degree of psychological safety. And we may all have various experiences in trying to make things agile when the environment, when the culture wasn't ready for it. So what's the pinnacle of psychological safety? You can challenge the way things are done without someone ripping off your arm and beating you over the head with it. You're allowed to make things better. If you cannot say, why do we do it like this? Wouldn't it be better if we left out that step? If you can't say that and get an honest answer that addresses the question and doesn't call you an idiot for asking the question, okay, that's psychological safety. It has to be safe to challenge the status quo. This is very rare. A lot of people talk the talk. Very few teams can actually walk the walk of putting up with someone who comes in and not in a disruptive way. You don't bring this up in the middle of the product demonstration, but you might bring it up during the retrospective. You know, we always do this. I don't think it's given us the results that we want. Can we try something different? Does the team support you in exchange for your candid contributions? That is really the final sign that you've got a fully functional, high-performing, psychologically safe team. Now, again, as individuals on the team, how do you react when someone else challenges? Do you say, hey, no, this is not the time to talk about that. We don't question that. That's, you know, that's a sacred cow. We're not gonna address that. Or do you say, yeah, you know, I don't necessarily agree, but I think that's a question worth talking about? Questions, comments? Does this make sense? Okay. Yeah. There's a thought that didn't need to be mentioned. So what do we do when somebody brings up a challenge or, you know, makes a contribution that is flawed or in any other way doesn't inspire your immediate support? Well, first of all, open up that gap between stimulus and response. Someone comes in and challenges, hey, why do we have to do a status report? I don't think we need to do status reports. We can just talk to each other. And you know, as the Scrum Master, you have to report up into the executive suite. You need those status reports. So your reaction is, no, we do status reports because I got to do this. It's a pain in the butt, but we need to do it because of this organization. How do you take advantage of the gap between stimulus and response to avoid creating unsafety? How do you avoid making the situation unsafe? Well, there's a meditation for that. This is called Just Like Me. And it's very simple. I'm not going to give you the long meditation. We don't have time for it tonight. But in the 3 breath framework, you can take that first breath to just say, I'm in the gap. I need to address this and I need to do it without being reactive. I need to do this mindfully. And in the second breath, you see a similarity. Now, in the full meditation, we start with the broadest possible similarities. This is a fellow human being. And as a fellow human being, they have wants, needs, and desires. They suffer pain and disappointment, just like me. And after going through this a bit and recognizing that the other person wants to be happy, just like me, we can then generate a feeling of wanting to help them be happy. Because after all, you want the same thing. You just disagree about how to get it. And so with that knowledge, you can say, hey, we want the same thing. Let's figure out how we can accomplish that together. So in the second breath, you see that similarity. Hey, this is a human being. This is a person who works for the same company, if that's true. This is a person who's on the same team, if that's true. This is a person with the same job, if that's true. But you find that similarity. And you go, this person is just like me. And then on your third breath, you offer them kindness. I want you to be happy. Now we have the situation of figuring out how to do that, but this practice will open up that space between stimulus and response and give you room to maneuver. And you'll be able to work as a team in a safe, psychologically safe way and come up with a solution that fits the situation. Anybody got any questions about all of this? I've gone through this very, very fast, but I hope you got the core concepts.
I have a question with the last meditation you just mentioned.
Hey, yes.
The second breath, you said similarity, just like me, we're human, we want the same things. What's your opinion if it's also a similarity like, I'm angry like you, I can feel anger, like not just positive, but negatives. What's your opinion about that?
If the anger is at each other, you're going to want to damp that down because trying to match their anger is just going to escalate up. Okay, everybody wants to be more angry than the other person. If you are angry at an external situation, if you're angry at the deadline being moved up, you can absolutely share that. But if you recognize through your empathy that the other person is angry at you or at something that you need to accomplish, then you're going to want to divert that and handle it in another way. Does that make sense? Excuse me just a second. I'm seeing. Can I share my presentation with Congress? I would love to. Can you give me the contact information? That would be great. Yeah, but yeah, we want a team of psychological safety. And when you have radically different ideas as to the simple meaning of good, that can be very difficult. And you know what? I'm going to divert a little and talk about Congress. Not everybody many people in Congress actually want to run the country. I mean, they want to pass the laws that need to be passed. They want to pass the budget that needs to be passed. They want to make things happen. There are a few people on both sides who have radically different ideas as to who should benefit from the way this nation is run. Some people have narrower definitions of who deserves, that's a word that gets used a lot, who deserves to benefit. Some people have broader understanding of who should benefit. And the people with the narrow definitions say that the broad definitions don't deserve the benefits. That's a really hard disagreement to get over because you're disagreeing about definitions. And you can't have a psychologically safe team when you have such a wide difference of opinion. Fortunately, in the workspace, we hope that we don't have such a wide difference of what the minimum deliverable product is. That's why you should have one product owner to set the standards of and make definitions of words. What does done mean? What does deserve mean? We don't have that out in larger life. And talking about larger life is something that I could go on for hours and do go on for hours. Look me up on LinkedIn and we'll book some time. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit. So Hutch and I are here together in the office, so we're kind of having our own chat on the side. So it's relevant. So we're not talking about the weather.
Okay.
And anyway, we're thinking about all these rubrics we built to help, build high-performing teams. The whole reason we built our agility metrics engine is to measure the agility from underperforming to improving to high-performing. And some of the recent rubrics we put together have to do with agile coaching. Some of them are based around the events, but one of the particular events we have is a retrospective, the sprint retrospective. in there we have a theme called psychological safety. So
Oh, good.
so Hutch and I are chatting a lot about that, and we're like, oh, we're kind of getting a lot of validation. A lot of what you're sharing here is validating all the research we've done. We've done a lot of research, reading books, looking at the blogs, looking up actual Merriam-Webster dictionaries, whatever it is we need to do, reaching out to other, subject matter experts in the space. So that way we create something that is, valid, true, accepted.
And also,
Oh, wait, keep yourself on mute. Told you we're in the same office. Yeah, just be okay. Go ahead.
and I'm sorry, and also expanding how we can apply psychological safety concepts and whatever beyond just the event retrospective, but basically maybe incorporated in how members of the same team work together and collaborate and still have a structure of psychological safety in place where all members feel safe in being able to communicate, work, collaborate, share their concerns and what have you.
Yep.
With the team members. So it's not just an event, right? But it's the whole way one approaches are part of way of working or their working agreement and arrangement that includes or addresses psychological safety. So yeah.
I'm glad we agree.
Yes. Yeah. And then also we have a theme on emotional intelligence, EQ, that I think you made reference to as far as self-awareness and so forth, which are some of the components of EQ.
Yep. Self-awareness, self-management are absolutely essential. If you aren't aware of and in control of your own individuality, you're going to have a really hard time dealing with other people. Okay. And that's a wonderful summary. Thank you so much. Great segue. So the essence of all of this is wisdom. Here's my summary, the same stuff we had before. And what we're going to do, what we're adding to this is taking 30 seconds to remember the others are just like me and I want to offer them kindness. I want them to be free from suffering. I want them to never be separated from their happiness. I want them to know joy. The way they're going about it may or may not meet with my approval. I may or may not want to support the way they're currently going, but I still want them to be free from suffering and to experience joy. Right? That's the whole division there, the discernment that's built into empathy. And that's the conclusion. And I'd like to take a moment to let this settle. So if everybody can just kind of unfocus your eyes, maybe cast your eyes down. And let's just take 3 breaths and think, wow, he sure talked fast. But maybe we can create more psychological safety in a world that is making everyone brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. And as I turn off my slides, we'll ask ourselves, what is the most important thing right now? This is me. I welcome connection. I hope to see your invites on LinkedIn, or even better, some email from you. That's all, folks.
Go ahead.
Hey, Sean, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Epotics.
Yeah.
Does that have a special meaning associated with what you presented, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you kind of?
Yes. It's from the Greek. Epi is the prefix meaning over or above, and optics is optics, like with your eyeballs. And so it means to see over or to see beyond.
Okay, so it's almost like two components in the word. So optics and then EP, as opposed to
if you have if you have a big enough dictionary, you can find epoptic or epoptics in the dictionary.
Yeah,
It is a real word, but it's rare.
yeah, I just tried to Google it, and
Well, you'll probably find me. I like the word because it's real, but it's rare.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
it does. It does. It literally means to see beyond.
Okay. Mhm.
Nice.
Good question. Any other questions? Marge, did I see your hand up?
Can you tell me how you came about to getting certified in emotional intelligence, and what is that coaching journey like?
I got my certification from a group called the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, which is a nonprofit that spun off of Google a lot of years ago, 15 or more years ago. Google, one of the senior fellows at Google, started teaching Buddhist meditation to his colleagues, and it became quite popular. And they turned it into an actual program at Google that you could sign up for and spend time on. And then after a while, the executives at Google said, "This is not our core competency. We build search engines," and they spun it off into its own nonprofit organization, the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. And you can look that up, SIYLI.org. And SIYLI spells silly if you're better at mindfulness than you are at spelling. So the people in the program call it silly. Silly offered, I don't think they do anymore, offered a year-long training and certification course that I graduated from. And now I can teach the Google gospel.
Wow.
Yeah, someone just put the link up in the chat. Yeah, go look at silly.org. And if you want to bring silly into your organization, we do a 2-day workshop, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the right people. We can take that offline because I don't want to get too much into the sales process here. But yeah, I am a certified teacher of the silly program. This is not the silly program. I have to hasten to add, this is my own home brew. I've got my own stuff in there. Any other questions? Did that answer your question, I should say?
Yes, that was very good. And thank you very much. And it's really a pleasure to have you presenting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great to have a distinguished Toastmaster as well.
Oh, yeah, somebody's been looking up my credits, huh? Yep. Yeah, I've been a Toastmaster for something like 30 years.
Yeah, I am a advanced Toastmaster bronze.
Oh,
yeah. So I got a lot of my leadership and communication trainings through Toastmaster. I'm forever grateful. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great program. Anyone else? Come on, this is Sherman's time. Yes, Peggy.
This is Peggy. I have two things. Thank you for bringing up the Toastmasters. I wanted to share that I belong to bilingual French and Spanish, and it's not as rigid as the English ones, but it lets people play around with languages, those people who want to learn. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know. So I'm having a fun time with my Toastmasters experiences. Oh. And secondly, I wanted to say it's very refreshing to see how you laid out these meditations. Someone who's been studying meditation for years and still doesn't know how to do it. And you hear, for example, 20-minute meditation, 15-minute, and you're just like, oh, geez, okay. So you just try to get your mind to stop. And when you're saying 30 seconds, 3 breaths, I go, 3 breaths in 30 seconds. It was beyond my comprehension that 30 seconds is 3 breaths. I learned it tonight. So thank you for that. And the Think Like Me, it has such a nice connection to like the spiritual roots that some of us may be looking at. When we would just want to like share love. But in this case, you said, share some kindness. Hopefully there's kindness and you can actually have people see your way in a business setting. So it's very nice to see that connection there and the simplicity that you presented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad that was successful. Yes, we don't have time. We don't have time to do even a 5-minute meditation, maybe in your lunch break, but no. And I do believe that if you can't take your teaching out on the street, it's not that great a teaching. Mike, did you have a question?
Hey, Sean, just want to thank you. The psychological safety, I think, is something that's growing more and more, and it's great to have a phrase around that. There's a lot of FOMO. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome that kind of happens. And so by having that psychological safety for newcomers, new employees who have been around for a while, or even like kids coming out of college into the more agile and structured area, it's great to have that psychological safety. There have been numerous times where I'm sure everybody heard about the big layoff with Meta, but I mean, there's areas where I think people don't understand that there's an area, or that in order to have that welcoming, embracing environment, you need to have that psychological safety. Otherwise, people are completely shocked, bamboozled, and kind of have the wool pulled over their eyes. So it's great to hear that this is part of the presentation. It's definitely heartwarming knowing that there's that empathy and care in order to really have a team and an organization grow. So I like hearing that part of the presentation. Thanks again.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here. Anyone else?
Yeah, I thought I'd add a little bit of something that I
Okay.
find is for me. I don't know if it would be classified as meditation or not, but I kind of call it a release. And what works for me is actually when I walk my dog and I make sure I don't bring any tech, meaning no phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And why that works for me is it removes me from the current situation, allows me to get focused, and opens up my mind to possibilities or thinking about things that have been either overwhelmed or just been consuming all of my brain power. So when I go out and take the dog for a walk, I've got 15 minutes where it's just me, and it does let me feel. So I don't know if you would classify it as meditation, but it's definitely a release and lets me realize things that I didn't know were there. They were below the surface and I didn't know about them. So it works for me.
Okay, if it works for you, it works. As someone said, if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. And that's not stupid at all. If it works for you, then by all means do it. Any kind of meditation can be done in a number of different ways. We talked about focused meditation where you concentrate on your breath or whatever, open meditation where you're open to all the sensory impressions around you. We did that sitting in our chairs. You can also do that walking down the street. The focused version of that is a little bit trickier because you're supposed to be keeping all your attention on your focus and not on your surroundings. So that can be hazardous if you're literally walking on the street. But you'll see Buddhist monks, is my experience, they'll go into the garden or whatever, into a physically safe area, and they'll concentrate on, I'm putting my foot down and I'm rolling from heel to toe. And now I'm coming up on my toes, and now my other foot is coming down, and the heel is touching the ground, and I'm rolling up on, and so on. And it's a very focused meditation on how your foot is touching the ground. Thich Nhat Hanh used to do that a lot. I really love his method of doing it. The other sounds a little bit more like what you might be doing with the dog, and that's just being open and not thinking about anything, just paying attention to your surroundings, not getting hit by a car, and taking care of your dog, and letting your mind relax. That is also definitely meditation. It's more of an open awareness kind of thing. So just because somebody tells you you need to sit, you need to cross your legs, you need to hold your hands in a particular way, there's reasons for all that stuff. And if we wanted to get into a 30-minute meditation or longer, then that stuff would matter. We don't have time for that during the working day. And if you can't do the meditation, it doesn't matter how good the meditation is. So let's start by paying attention in 30-second chunks, in 3 breaths. 1 breath to gather your attention in from the outside world and focus it on whatever you're about to meditate on. 1 breath to do the meditation, and 1 breath to come back out of it and ask yourself, okay, now what am I going to do now that I have hit the pause button on the game of the world, and now we're back into the play of it. Does that make sense? Okay, over to you, Sherman. I've talked enough.
Thanks, Sean. All right, at this point, I'm going to stop recording. So everybody, thank you, Sean. An amazing talk. Very engaging as always. I love having you as a host. Thank you so much.